Good morning, it's Al. Welcome to Al's Drum Hang. Thanks for all the likes, subscribes, and views over the last week. That last video really went big, and I'm excited to bring you more content. In this video, you can see I'm out by the lake, playing a gig, having a lot of fun with my friends. But just like this gig and hundreds others I've played, I had to load a car and I had to get stuff from the car to the stage. In this next video, I'm going to be talking about how I load my car, why I load my car the way I do, and some tips and tricks I've learned to make sure that loading in and out of the gig is as painless as possible and allows you to have fun like I'm having here. Alright guys, strap in, let's get started. So this is my main driver. This is a Subaru Outback. Now you may have a typical 4-door or even 2-door smaller car, but one of the things I've chosen to do over my years, because I play drums and I gig a lot, is I bought a car that could swallow a drum set very easy and have room left over for people. But that doesn't mean that you can't make a smaller car work for you. You're just going to have to use your back seat and even your passenger seat very carefully and leave the trunk space for stuff that will fit in there, like your hardware or some of your smaller drums. One thing we're going to want to do before we start packing is definitely get the car ready to pack, which means if we've got one of these grocery holding cargo nets, we're going to have to stuff that off to the side so we can lift stuff in here and it doesn't get caught on anything. Also things like shopping bags and stuff that are in the load that you might want to get rid of and keep and not destroy, you're definitely going to want those. You'll notice I have a rubber mat in my car. This keeps from damaging the car bed quite so much. Now, one of the things you're going to notice is that I have not put the back seat down. That's because I've worked out a system to get most of my drums and other stuff back here and only have to put a few things in the back seat. That's because I'm gigging a 4-piece kit right now. When I gig larger kits, like my Yamaha, which has a lot more toms, some of those toms end up going in the back seat. The first thing I always load in my car, whether I'm loading in to go to the gig or coming back from the gig, is the bass drum. Why? It's the biggest thing normally in the kit. And you've got to make it fit in here. So go ahead and fit it in here. A couple of things. Number one, I keep one of the spurs popped out a little bit so that it doesn't roll around in the bed of the car. I've got the reso head pointed against the side of the car and the thicker batter head out towards the other things that are going to be in the bed of the car. That way, if anything pokes it or damages it, it's got a lot less chance of breaking the drum head. The next things I load in the car are the next largest things, the rack toms. Now, you'll notice I don't have any cases on my drums, and I'm even stacking the toms as I put them in the car. In my experience, this doesn't really hurt anything. It leads to a little bit of a quicker setup and tear down. But this is up to you. If you choose to use cases because your drums are nice and you want to protect your investment, that's fine. And I don't have anything to say about that. This is a player's kit, and I pack it very carefully so I don't use cases on these. Just slide those right in there as far to the left as they'll go, and I'm leaving a little space here in between them. You'll see why in a second. This is a laptop bag, but what it's really got in it is all of my sound equipment. It's got my microphone cables, my microphones, a little mixer for my headphones, and a whole bunch of bits and bobs for running sound from a drum set to the mains or getting me signal from the mains in my ears. So this slides carefully right in here. between the floor tom and the bass drum batter head, preventing either of them from getting damaged. And that makes a handy little place with a stick bag to just rest right up in there. The next thing that goes in the car is this little baby, which I lovingly call the coffin, but it's a hardware bag. So I've got 3 or 4 boom stands, I've got a hi-hat stand, snare stand, the drone bass, and a couple of other things in here. And it's heavy, which is why it's on wheels. Remember, kids, lift with your legs, not with your back. And that fits really beautifully just right there. This smaller bag carries my bass drum pedals, carries a couple of extension cords. It also carries the tom mount that slides into the bass drum. And it's a bit lighter than this one for sure. And therefore, it can just ride right up here. Once again, see, the toms are protected. If you're putting something in a case, it doesn't have to be fancy. Case in point, these are a couple of old helmet bags from when I was in the Army. This one has got my throne seat in it. This one has a timbali and also tambourine and some other percussion. So I can probably make these fit right back in here. And there's a little space right behind here I can slide the seat in. Great. You'll notice that's nearly the whole drum set, and I can still see kind of over the back here, but there's really not much room for anything else. So I'm gonna put the snare drum, which, you know, it's kind of expensive, and the cymbals in the back seat on the floor. There we go, all nice and cozy. That's gonna be pretty safe. Oh, look, isn't that my emergency kit? Why, yes, yes it is. It fits great right there behind the console. Because we've got plenty of room still left in the back seat, that's a good place for things that we're going to need to take out early, and for little creature comforts. When I'm talking about creature comforts, fan. Huge important, especially for me, gigging in the summer a lot outdoors, need a fan. So that'll go in the back seat. Another thing that you can't forget is a rug. I leave this rug right next to the door to the third car garage right there, so I don't forget it. Okay, and it can even just go right there. So when you open up the tailgate, the very first thing right there, you whip it out, throw it down where your drums are gonna go. You've staked your spot. Very important, so that a guitarist or a bass player doesn't steal your spot. I hate it when they steal your spot. One more piece of gear, and it's actually kind of compact. I can throw it in the back seat behind the passenger seat, plenty of room for that. This is a folding camp wagon, like you buy at Target or wherever. That right there makes a quick, maybe 2 trip from the car to the stage, especially when you're like me and you're playing a lot of winery gigs or gigs outside in the summer. This is fantastic. Even better, when you're done setting up, you can throw all your cases and extra stuff in it and just wheel it behind the stage or in a bush or something, or even just throw it right back in the back of your car. The great thing about these things is that they're fairly light, they're fairly cheap, and they're versatile. You know, when you're at the gig, you could also come back to the car, and if you have like a cooler of drinks or a blanket for your significant other to sit on while you're playing or anything like that, this is great for that. Sometimes my dog even comes to the gigs and we put a blanket in this and she sits in it and stays out of people's ways. Anyway, just like the rug, you're gonna want this readily accessible because it's gonna be one of the first things you need. Usually I'll either find a space for it back here, or like I said, I'll just poke it behind the passenger seat. So it's easy to get to quickly when I get to the gig. And that's it. We are packed. We're ready to go. Did we forget anything? Call me a nerd if you want, but a long time ago, I made a little checklist of the things I normally bring on gigs, and I printed it out, and it's right there by the door to the storage area in my garage, so I can check things off as I bring them to the car. You can see everything has its place. I've got a system. I use it every single time. It's so efficient and works so well that even my bandmates have learned it, and they know where to put stuff when they bring stuff out of the car, which is another added bonus. It's easier for people to help you if you've got a system like this. So that's it. It's kind of like a big game of Tetris, isn't it? What's your system like? How do you deal with a smaller car? Do you have a larger car? Is there something that you saw here that I could have done better? Drop it in the comments below. If you're like me, packing up for the gig and transporting this stuff feels like a hassle, but having a system like this will help you to remember things. It'll help you to organize your load in and your pack out, and it just makes it a little bit easier to gig. All right, this has been Al's Drum Hang. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for all your tremendous support. I really appreciate it. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and enable notifications. I've got a lot of fun content planned in the months ahead, so stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe. I'll see you next time on Al's Drum Hang.